ask you, are you prepared to work with Metro Vancouver Alliance? We're prepared to work with you. We've made that commitment. You can see the energy and the commitment in the room, and we've been working a year and a half to develop these issues, and so we want to know if you're going to be there to work with us. As we aim to make Vancouver a more inclusive city, are you prepared to work with us at Metro Vancouver Alliance to first develop innovative solutions to social isolation, and number two, to reform the permit process to facilitate small local organizations who wish to put on events? Gregor Robertson.
Thank you. Yes and yes on Vision Vancouver's behalf, and a big thank you to all of you for being here, and thanks for the focus on social isolation. So we have an extraordinarily multicultural city. That is our great strength, but we do have real challenges with social isolation. That's one of the reasons that I created the Engage City Task Force, which made a whole amazing set of recommendations around actions to enhance public space, to enable people to connect a lot more significantly in our neighborhoods. We have seen a lot of new events, celebrations, block parties in recent years. We've done a lot to support a lot more celebration and connection in our city, and we need to keep advancing that. So really important to facilitate the process. My mayor's working group on immigration is also focused on Sanctuary City and making sure that newcomers to Vancouver are safe here as well. So a big focus has to continue on making our city inclusive. It's a point of pride for many of us, but we have more work to do. Thanks.
Thank you.
We move on to the issue of transit and the preparation for the referendum next spring. And this is a three-part question, which will first go to Kirk Lapointe. Are you prepared to, one, actively campaign and encourage your supporters to pass the transit referendum? Two, actively advocate for affordable transit in the region for everyone? And three, participate in at least 2 MVA forums on transportation issues before and after the referendum. Mr. Lapointe. And Gregor Robertson.
Thank you. Definitely yes on all three. Transit is enormously important to Vancouver. It's arguably the most critical issue we face over these next 6 months with respect to the referendum. So I've been a huge champion for transit, and that means better bus service across the whole region. We need a massive investment in more buses. We need the Broadway subway to be built for our east-west axis. We need to be sure that those pieces are supported in the referendum. We have to champion transit in the region and the referendum in particular. I must say I've been disappointed to not see a wholehearted, optimistic support from Mr. Lapointe and his party. We have to be champions for this. And that's going to be critical because we have support around the region, consensus of mayors around the region who are saying that we need more buses, we need Broadway subway, we need investment. We need that case made to the province and ensure that we win that referendum next spring.
Thank you.
Poverty and making Vancouver a fair living wage city. So starting with Gregor Robertson, are you prepared to work with Metro Vancouver Alliance to first commit to developing a plan to make the City of Vancouver a living wage employer for all directly and indirectly employed workers in the city, and secondly, to promote a living wage plan to other municipalities and other employers?
Yes, and thank you for the questions and the position on this. So Vancouver is a great city and very well run thanks to our city workers. Our city workers do an extraordinary job and make the city tick. And we have a very constructive and respectful relationship with our city unions for the past 6 years. We've enjoyed that in stark contrast to what happened before, an acrimonious relationship that we saw a garbage strike emanate from. We've changed that, and it's very important with the living wage piece that we sit down first and have that conversation with our locals, with our unions, and make sure that we put together as strong as possible an approach that respects the collective agreements and gets a living wage as policy in the city that we can promote far and wide. So we will focus on that. We came in our first action 6 years ago. One of our first actions was to call for a raise in the minimum wage. So we've been strong believers in this. It finally happened, but we need to go a step further.
Thank you.
And so we come to the last issue, at least last on the list. and that's the issue of housing and making Vancouver a better housed city. And Mina Wong, I'll ask you to answer first. Are you prepared to work with MVA to strengthen, enforce, and extend bylaws to ensure decent standards of maintenance and protect tenants from renovictions? And will you work with us to make covenants a component in all new developments, locking in truly affordable purchase and rental housing in perpetuity? Sorry, we started with Mina, so Mr. Robertson, please. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And the answer is yes and yes. We have had an enormous focus on affordable housing over the past 6 years. And Vancouver is a city that everyone wants to live in from around the world, and that's created huge pressure on our housing stock. But we have worked very hard to deliver affordable housing. Record levels of social housing being created over the past several years. Record levels of rental housing being created over the last 2 years, over 1,000 units a year. And we're committing to continue that pace for this next term. We've created a rent bank to protect renters from homelessness. We've made a lot of strides in cracking down on slumlords, in particular with enforcement. That never happened in the past, so this is unprecedented steps. The problem is still huge. We can't have the NPA continue to vote against social housing for over 500 units, vote against rental housing over 900 units. We have to press forward on this with all of the tools we can, and I will certainly be committed to doing that and protecting renters.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robertson. And thank you. Thank you all.
So, MVA, how did we do? You know, the issues and the commitments that we put forward tonight, as we said earlier, are the results of a 1.5 years long of listening to people and researching and action teams. And what they've done is given us something to talk to the candidates about that we know is both concrete and achievable. And I think that within a minute of each person being able to say yes, we know we're not so naive as to think that there's not going to be some work to do in hashing out details. But we do thank you for your serious consideration and for your commitments. And we make the commitment that you won't have to do any of this alone, because you have all of us to work with you. And so thank you.
Thank you all.